Thanks, Bill. And one more time, we should give it up for the 2024 winner of the Monkey Wrench Award, Bill Brown. Yahoo! Well, I have to say that I'm a little apprehensive of standing in front of you today because I, like many of you, have not been a lifelong early childhood advocate, and I have not been someone who has been pushing the development of early childhood education as a K-12 leader for the past 34 years. I have been a superintendent for the last 20 years in the state of Michigan, and that truly has been impactful to me. Many in this room have been those people who I have stood on your shoulders. Some intentionally, some unintentionally, but I've stood on a lot of shoulders. And I want to take a moment and recognize some folks, especially from my team. Kim Clark. Kim is the Director of Early Childhood and Family Services. I've actually known Kim my entire life. We grew up together. And then when I had the opportunity to become the superintendent of Merrill Community Schools, she was the early childhood director. And she began the process of trying to change my thinking. It's been a long process. Still working on it, she says. Great. Kim Mashad, also from our team, another great leader who followed in the footsteps at our shop of Johnny Tayton, who's over in the other room. And amazing leaders, again, people who are trying to help me to understand what my role is in the community, in a leadership role in the state of Michigan. Bethany Schoen, the director of the Great Start Collaborative in Midland, is an important contributor to helping me think differently and about my role as someone who can advocate for early childhood. Greg Kreider, our Director of Special Education, sometimes, well, let me just say, he said, "I'll be booing for you in my head." That's the epitome of love, I think, don't you? Andrea Seacrease is here from Greater Midland. She has been an amazing leader, helping me to understand how community-based organizations have to be an integral part of building this system across our state. Alan Oman, I would be remiss. Alan Oman, many of you know, he was at Midland ESA when I first came there 14 years ago, and he began a process of helping me to understand what is GSRP and what is our role in the community. My friend Kristen McDonald-Rivette is a senator now, but she was at Greater Midland for a time when we were collaborating, and Kristen is an amazing person, now running for Congress for the Kildee seat in the Flint and Midland area. So again, a great supporter, someone who will look at me and say, "John, you are so full of shit. You need to change your thinking about blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, all right. Very plain spoken and critical part of my development as an educator in this world. And then finally, Jared. Jared's our youngest son, just turned 21. He's in the Air Force, just moved him to his first base. But many of you know that I tell Jared stories all the time. And Jared was our first and only child that really was ever in preschool. And so I had to get my head around Jared being in preschool and what that was going to mean. And many of you have heard me tell Jared stories over the years, so I'm not going to disappoint you. I'm going to tell one more. He was we were building our house where we currently live, and Jared comes up to me one day and he says, "Dad, I am so the F word." He's 3. And like any good parent, I would look at him and say, "Okay, Jared, what's the F word?" He looks at me like I'm stupid. And he says, "Firsty." And that story reminds me of the fact that so many interesting stories come out of the little ones' mouths. Not only that, but then it's an early time for us to be able to intervene in their lives, to get them the things that they need, so that maybe when they get to kindergarten, they're not going to be firsty anymore, but they're going to be thirsty. And what What a great victory that is, I think. I want to talk about collaboration. Collaboration is key, I think. I'm supposed to... Yeah. Collaboration, I'm supposed to press the slide button too. I know most people have mastered that up here, not me yet. Collaboration is key, and I want to talk about the collaboration between Midland ESA and Gratiot and Isabella RESD because we have a consortium. I don't know if it's the biggest, I don't know if it's the best, I know it is wonderful. We have 57 GSRP classrooms in our 3-county region. We have 2 Strong Beginnings classrooms in our region. Of those classrooms, 11 are brand new this year. We're feeling the growing pains at Midland ESA in terms of opening those places, hiring the right staff, and understanding that we want what's absolutely best for those kids. While we're doing it, I feel your challenge. I feel your pain. I understand that. It doesn't make it an excuse for why we can't do it, because we're going to continue to work together and to collaborate. Paul Hungerford, the soup at Gratiot Isabella, is an amazing collaborator, just like all of you are in this room. And I want to emphasize how important it is when we look at this task as being so large and overwhelming that we can do this together. We can collaborate as ISDs and as leaders. We can get together even though we might not be experts. We can come together with our experts and make wonderful experiences happen for the kids and families that we serve. I know that it's hard to find the right amount of finance for your office, finance people, leadership, ECSs, intake specialists, and on and on and on. It's hard, but together we can develop that depth of bench. There's a sports analogy. I'm not good at those. We can develop the depth of bench that is necessary in order for us to provide amazing experiences for our kids and families, and that is a good thing. In Midland County, we're pretty proud of some of our data, okay? So in Midland County, of all the 3- and 4-year-olds that exist, about 49% of them are in some kind of a preschool program. Now, when we think about the importance of community-based organizations, or CBOs, in Midland County, 66% of our classrooms, of our GSRP classrooms, are run by CBOs, like Andrea Secrease, who's here with us today. It's really important as we think about expansion for us to think, how are we going to work as a community to provide high-quality experiences, preschool experiences, GSRP, Head Start, whatever it is, how we're going to work together to fulfill that need. It is critically important, and 66% is high. It is very high, but it's not good enough for us yet. We continue to work together, right, to develop additional programs and additional community-based organizations who want to partner with us. And how do you do that? How do you do that? You think to yourself, well, I'm living in the UP or I'm living in northern Michigan, and there's no one around. Well, I don't have magic. I do have some things, and I want to talk about it in this next slide, if I would push it forward. There we go. Which you probably can't even read, but I'm going to talk to you about it. I want you to think about building relationships and how important those relationships are as you work with people. I see a lot of people are laughing at me. That's okay. Relationships are key for coming together and really understanding who exists in our communities. You have to think about yourself as an educational leader. And superintendents, I'm speaking directly to you at this time because you have the unprecedented opportunity to bring people together in your communities. You have that convening authority that almost no one else in your community has. When you ask people to come together, whether they're business leaders or whether they're educators or whether they're owners of big companies or you name it, when you say, hey, come to a meeting, I want to talk about whatever, people will come because you asked. Use that convening authority to get people together to better understand your community, to better understand what are those unmet needs. And I want you to think about the challenges in your community. And you can only know those challenges by talking to people. You can only know where there are childcare deserts by talking to people, by creating the hot maps, by talking to the people who know about where the kids are. When you convene those stakeholders and have those conversations and you learn, you can think about early care and education as economic development in your community. Because many people after COVID were not able to go back to work, even though they may have wanted to, because there was not a space for them to have their child go while they went off to work. And so places like in our community, Dow or Corteva or DuPont, if the talent is there and available to work and who people want to work, but they can't have good care for their kids, they won't work. And again, that is an economic driver that is really important to our state. And some people will think about economics before they think about caring for kids. And so speak the language, code shift, say the right things to get people in the room and to think together and collaborate with business leaders and foundation leaders and United Way and, right? Think about how that's possible. And then support with your authority given to you by GSRP and Head Start and whatever else it is. Think about, where do you need to open new programs? Where are those deserts? You, my friends, hold the keys to where you open new programs. You do. Exercise that authority. Work to solve problems, and they are immense. Space is a problem. Space that's licensable, right? It's a challenge. Think about quality. Think about the quality of your staff and the pipelines that are necessary to put into those classrooms in front of kids. And do you have to work to develop that pipeline? How do we work together with things like Talent Together to make the pipeline something that is sustainable over time? And thinking about the challenges. I might stand up here with a really pretty face and a really strong team of people in front of me, and I might make it look easy, but it's not. It's not easy. There are plenty of challenges. Serving all 4-year-olds in the state of Michigan is a great goal, but I want you to think about it in terms of the goals that we have already accomplished in Michigan. When I was first a superintendent 20 years ago, one of the biggest conversations that I was involved in was, how are we going to ever implement full-day kindergarten? It was so overwhelming. Now think, can you name one half-day kindergarten right now? Together, we make changes that are lasting and important for kids and families in this state. We don't really want to talk about competitive wages or wages that are on par for early childhood educators with our kindergarten counterparts. But we have to be starting that conversation. We have to be steeped in it. Until we have pay parity, we're always going to have this creation of new teachers and an exodus into K-12. We have to think about it, and we have to be strategic about what we do now to influence what will be 10, 15, 20 years from now. Are you with me on that? Come on. And most importantly, we have to have people to pay. So we have to develop those pipelines to bring people into the profession, to bring people who look like the kids we are serving into the profession, including men. Right? We have to think about appropriate space and what that looks like. We have to work with Emily and her team to make sure that the licensing is on par with each other so that we can actually do this work. We know the types of challenges that exist between an early childhood special education classroom that I don't have to license and a GSRP classroom next door that I do. There's some ludicrousy there that we need to work together with the safety of kids in mind being paramount as we work through those challenges, right? We can do that. We have to remember to try to maintain some of the things that we hold dear, like in-home visits, while we move to full day every day, 5 days a week, GSRP. We have to think about what are those elements that are most important and how do we retain them as we move forward. And again, we have to think about our K-12 partners. We have to think again about how do we create a full service when some of our K-12 partners are going to simply want to pluck out the 4-year-olds and put them in their schools. And we're going to cause other centers to go out of business because of that. So we have to work, we in this room have to work at creating full service models in our communities so that all kids and families are served. I've been a K-12 educator. I have been a K-12 superintendent, and yet I will say kind of guardedly that I do know that sometimes K-12 is not the best place to situate early childhood education yet because we have a bit of a mindset on how kids need to learn and show up. I think it was John at the beginning said something like, what if all kids were ready for kindergarten when they go? And my friend and colleague here, Greg, said, what if all kindergartens were ready for kids? Truly, folks, we're not there yet, but we need to be. I was very proud. It shows me how little I know, but listening to the conversations at my table a few minutes ago, thinking about what are those structural changes that we need to make as an organization to better facilitate collaboration. How am I part of the problem in creating a better system? I need to understand that and then act on it. And as I close, I want you to think about some opportunities. We have a system still in Michigan that I'm trying to understand. We have early childhood special education half-day programs being offered to parents while we have full-day GSRP and Head Start being offered. And we have parents who are forced to choose a longer continuum of care rather than the care that their kid needs. That is a problem systemically that we need to work together to fix, right? And I think that we need to think about how early childhood and early care programming in the state of Michigan goes to building resilience, goes to building better people, goes to building the people who we want taking care of us when we're old. And while we spend so much time and energy hardening our facilities against attacks and against this and that and all the things that can happen and do happen, how about we work on focusing on building better people, building kids that are resilient, building teachers and other workers in our environments that know what the words attachment and attunement mean and know what it's like to work in an environment where you feel connected to your colleagues, connected to your kids, connected to the families that you serve. And as we move to the next level of thinking about what do home-based child centers look like and how do we fold them in? How do we begin to think about what do those mom and pop shops look like and how can we support them in a way that makes sense? Not that we're fearful of the voucher slide or fearful of what could go awry, but think about what could be next as we work together to build this system. You know, many of you heard me talk about the book I'm writing. Some of you are sick of hearing about the book I'm writing because you say, when the hell is the book going to be done? Well, the book is titled The Reluctant Beekeeper, Lessons in Life, Love, and one more thing I can't remember right now. Write the book, John. Maybe I could reference it then. Reluctance is something that many of us have when there are new challenges that we face. Reluctance. It can be that we in this room are reluctant about the challenges that we are facing, or we can use it for an opportunity to come together and work together and solve the problems together. Bees are interesting, and why I write about them is because when you think about the individual contribution of a single bee, it's not much. But when you think about the collective impact of a bee in a hive, like here in this room, the collective impact is almost immeasurable.